We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Daled Amud Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 74a. The Mishnah says, Elu Asurin, the following are prohibited, the Osrin B'chol Shehu, and they also prohibit even with the smallest amount. Rashi explains, Elu Asurin v'Osrin B'chol Shehu, Kol Makom Shenisar Vusham, anything that they get mixed up within them, Afilu Echad B'elef, even if it's 1 in 1,000, lo batel, it is not nullified, v'Osrin es kulan, and they forbid all of them. And the Mishnah continues, Yei Nesech, the first is Yayin Nesech. Rashi explains, Yei Nesech chavis be'elef chevios. This case over here is, let's say you have a barrel of Yayin Nesech among 1,000 barrels. Now all of those barrels of wine are going to be prohibited. Va'avodas kochavim, the same halach is true when it comes to Avoda Zara. And Rashi explains, Va'avodas kochavim and Avoda Zara, tzura she'avdua, let's say you have an image, a statue that was worshipped. V'nesarva be'elef tzuros she'enon Avodas kochavim, it gets mixed up with 1,000 statues that are not Avoda Zara. Again, the halach is the same, they are all forbidden. Vioros, levuvin, and hides with a tear opposite the heart, that indicates that the heart was used as a sacrifice to Avodah Zara. The same halacha over there as well. Rashi explains, Vioros, levuvin, the havunami isure hana, they also are aser behana, you can't get any benefit. V'shor haniskal, if you have an ox that is supposed to be stoned. The egla arufa, you have an egla arufa, that's the calf which the neck is broken. In a situation where you have a dead body, you have to measure which city is the closest, and then you do the process of the egla arufa. And that also is aser bahana, v'tzipore mitzora, and the bird offerings of a mitzora, v'sar nazir, and the hair of a nazir, u'peter chamor is the firstborn donkey, u'vaser b'cholav, if you have meat with milk, u'seir hamishtaleach, and you have the scapegoat on Yom Kippur, v'chulen shenishchetu ba'azara, and if you have regular animals that are slaughtered in the azara, they are not karbanos, but they're slaughtered in the azara. All of these cases, harelu, asur, and these are all forbidden, v'osrin b'chol shu, and again, they forbid even the smallest amount in terms of mixtures. And Rashi explains, v'tzipore mitzora v'chulin shenishchetu ba'azara, again, the bird offerings of mitzora and chulin that were slaughtered in the azara, isure hanohain, these are also forbidden to get benefit. V'seir nazir, and the hair of a nazir, the isure hanohu, that's also forbidden in benefit. T'chsiv, as it's written, v'nasan alo eish asher tachas zevach hashlam, and you put it on the fire. Upeter chamor, the firstborn donkey, the asr b'hana calls man shelo nifta, as long as it has not been redeemed, it is also forbidden to get benefit. And finally, Rashi says, "Ubasar b'chalav," and meat with milk. Chatichas basar shenisbashla b'chalav. The case over here is you have a piece of meat that gets cooked in milk. V'nesra b'nos tam. Now it's also because the taste was imparted. V'chazra v'nesarva be'elef chatichos, and then it gets mixed up with another 1,000 cuts of meat. Oseres kulan b'hana. Now they're all aser to get benefit from them. V'haytana savar basar b'chalav iser hana. Now the Tan of our Mishnah holds that basar b'chalav is aser b'hana. The plugsi b'chal basar b'shchitas chulin. That's actually a machlokas in shchitas chulin. And Rashi continues, "V'yesh shalamedim mishnasenu." There are some who learn from our Mishnah the basar b'chalav b'mashu, that it says over here basar b'chalav is b'mashu usvurin, and they understand the Mishnah to mean the high b'cholshu the katani. When it says b'cholshu over here, kagon tipas chalav shenaflo lekadeira, they understand like you have a drop of milk that falls into a pot, or chatichas basar katana shenaflo lekadeira, a small amount of meat that falls into a pot. V'afilu ein bon non tes, even if it's not 59 times, meaning to say even if you have a situation where you have more than 60 times the amount, and you should have bittul theoretically, but they understand it. Asers b'cholshu v'tosu b'yadam, but this is a mistake. Ta'mefarshinan b'gemara detana davar shebeminyan katani. We're going to explain in the Gemara that we're talking here about things that are beminyan, meaning things that are so important that you count them individually. Kagon chaticha b'chatichos, like you have a cut of meat among a lot of meat, among a lot of cuts of meat. Mishum the darkon limanos chashiv v'lo batel, since it's something that you count individually, it's important, it's not nullified. If we're talking about where the taste of the meat is mixed into the milk, or the reverse, you have a little drop of milk in a pot of meat, would that be a davar shebeminyan? And plus, we have learned that all isurin shabbat Torah, there's a concept of bittul b'shishim if it's not of the same kind. Even Rav and Shmuel that say that it's even any amount makes it usher, but if it's not of the same kind, they admit that we follow shishim, we follow 60 times the amount, and so therefore, again, we are not talking about a drop of milk falling into a pot of meat. What we're talking about is you have a piece of meat that already became aser as basar b'cholav, because let's say it was cooked in milk, and then that gets mixed up with other pieces of meat. And the Gemara says, Tana Maika Chashiv, what is the Tana of our Mishnah counting when the Tana of our Mishnah is enumerating various cases which are Osrin B'cholshu? The Gemara says, I Davar Shebeminyan Kachashiv, if what the Tana is counting is Davar Shebeminyan, which is what Rashi mentioned, meaning things that are important, that they're counted individually, those are the things that are Osr and they Asr B'cholshu. So listening Nami Chatichos Nevela, so then we can also include Chatichos Nevela. Why is it that we're only including, for example, Chatichos, which are Basar B'cholav, Chatichos Nevela, which is not kosher, and you have Chatichos, which is something that's chashav enough that it's a davar shebeminyan, that also should be listed in the Mishnah. And Surei Hana Kachashiv, if what we're listing in the Mishnah is just things that are prohibited to get benefit from, so listening Nami Chametz B'Pesach. So for example, you can also have in the Mishnah Chametz on Pesach, which of course is also Asr B'Hana. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Reb Chia bar Abba v'Itemer Reb Yitzchak Nafcha. Reb Chia bar Abba says, and some say Reb Yitzchak Nafcha says, Hai Tana Tarti Islay. The Tana of our Mishnah holds that you need to have both of them. Davar Shebeminyan v'isurei hana. It has to be something that's a Davar Shebeminyan that's counted individually, and it also has to be something that it's prohibited to get benefit from that item. And Rashi explains, the Davar Shebeminyan Kachashiv, if we're counting Davar Shebeminyan, things that are counted individually that are important, Mishum de Darko Limonos Lo Batal, the reason why they are not nullified is because there's something that there are things that are counted. Ve'afilu Lav Isra Hanon, and even if it's not something that's Asr B'Hana, so Nachshov Nami Chatichos Nevela, then we should count Chatichos Nevela. That's not Asr B'Hana. You're not allowed to eat Nevela, but it's not Asr B'Hana, but it is something that is a Davar Shebeminyan. And the Gemara answered, Tarti Islay holds both of them. Davar Shebeminyan v'isurei hana. The things listed in the Mishnah are both Davar Shebeminyan and they're Asr B'Hana. Di'ika Tarti l'chashivu. So that has two things that make them important. The Chashiv Isr did hu delo batal, and therefore the Isr is considered important and it's not batal. Avol chametz prusa b'Pesach. Let's say you would have chametz, a slice of chametz on Pesach. Hoel vein darko limono, since that's something that is not normally counted. Batal umashlech echon mehen lanar. So it actually would be batal, and if you have everything mixed up, you would just take one of them and throw it to the river. V'hashar nosin lekalbo, and the rest he can give to his dog. V'chatichas nevela, and let's say you have a chatichas nevela, afagav the davar shebeminyan, who even though that is a davar shebeminyan, so it's chashav in the sense that it is counted. Kevan delav isr hanahu, since it's not something that's prohibited in benefit. Batala beruba v'chada shadi leklavim, it's going to be batal berov, it's going to be nullified in a majority, and you'll throw one to the dogs. V'inach sharu ba'achila, and the rest will be permitted to eat. And the Gemara continues and asks, V'lisni agoze perech v'rimone badon the davar shebeminyan v'isurei hanahu. Why doesn't our Mishnah also list nuts of perech and pomegranates of badon? Those are davar shebeminyan. Those are things which are counted. And they're also isurei hana. There could also be a situation, let's say it's arla, let's say it's kilayim. Those can be isurei hana. Why is that not listed in the Mishnah? And the Gemara says, Hatana lehasam, the reason why that's not listed in the Mishnah is because it's already listed in a different Mishnah. It's a Mishnah over there in Meseches arla. Haroy la arla arla, haroy la kilei hakerem, kilei hakerem. Whatever is fit to be arla is arla. Whatever is fit to be kilei hakerem is kilei hakerem. And the idea in that Mishnah was that those items are not going to be nullified in mixtures. And the Gemara continues and asks, V'lisni kikaros shel balabayas, why not list loaves of a balabayas, le'inyan chametz b'Pesach, that are also, in terms of, that are also chametz on Pesach, so you have a situation of chametz on Pesach, essentially, which is a davar shebeminyan, that also can be listed in our Mishnah. And the Gemara answers to that, Man shamatle, di'amarle, who's the one that says that? Rabbi Akiva. That's Rabbi Akiva says that. Hatana lehasam, and that's actually taught over there in that same Mishnah. In Meseches Orla, Rabbi Akiva Mosif Af Kikaros Shel Balabayis. Rabbi Akiva adds even the loaves of the Balabayis. And Rashi explains, Egoze Perach, Makom, Perach is a place. V'chein Rimone Badan, Badan also is a place. Im Shel Orlo Shel Kilei HaKerem. Whatever the case may be, let's say those Egoze Perach, for example, are Orla, or they're Kilei HaKerem. Hein V'nisarvu Be'elef Kulan Yidlaku. If they get mixed up in 1,000, so then again, they're all going to be, they all have to be burned. The point is they are not batal. And the Gemara says, Hatana lehasam, that already was taught over there, B'Seder Zraim. That already was taught in Seder Zraim, U'maisi lo b'beitza shenoldo, v'yavamos ba'oril. And so therefore we already have that in a Mishnah. The Gemara then said, V'lisni kikara shel balabayis le'inyan chametz b'Pesach. Why not say loaves of a balabayis that are chametz on Pesach? The davar shebeminyan hu v'isurei hana. That also is davar shebeminyan and isurei hana. And the Gemara said indeed that Rabbi Akiva is mentioned in that Mishnah in Meseches Arla. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah concluded, Harei Elu, these are Asr and they Asr b'cholshu. And the Gemara says, L'mu'utei mai, what does Harei Elu come to exclude? When you say these, it sounds like these and not something else. And the Gemara answers, Lemu'ute davar shebeminyan v'lav isurei hana. It comes to include something that is a davar shebeminyan. It's important enough that it's counted, but it's not isurei hana. That would not aser b'cholshu. Inami or lemu'ute isurei hana comes to exclude something that is isurei hana v'lo davar shebeminyan, but it's not a davar shebeminyan. It's not important enough to be counted on it individually. And again, that would not aser b'cholshu. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Yain nesech shenafa labor. If you have yain nesech, wine that was poured as libation to Avoda Zara, if that fell into a pit full of wine, a cistern full of kosher wine, kulo asr b'hana, the entire cistern of wine becomes asr b'hana, you can't get benefit from it. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Yimocher kulo lo ovid kochavim. Actually, you could sell the entire thing to an ovid kochavim, to an idolater, a non-Jew, chutz midmei yain nesech shabo, with the exception of the value of whatever that yain nesech was that fell in, because you can't get benefit from yain nesech. In other words, according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, we have a leniency over here that you simply sell all of the wine and you exclude the value of the yain nesech that fell in. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav says, Halacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Chavis b'chavius. The halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that you can be makel. Let's say you have a barrel of yain nesech that gets mixed up with a bunch of other barrels of wine, then you can be makel and say, sell everything to the Ovid Kochavim except for the value of the yain nesech. Avalo yain b'yain, but we wouldn't be lenient in a situation where wine actually poured into a cistern full of kosher wine. Shmuel Amar and Shmuel says, Afilo yain b'yain, we're lenient like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, even if wine falls into wine. V'chein Amar Rabba bar bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and similarly Rabba bar bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Afilu yayin b'yayin. Again, we're lenient like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel by wine and wine. V'chein Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nasan Amar Rabbi Chanina. Similarly, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nasan says that Rabbi Chanina says Afilu yayin b'yayin, that we're makel by wine into wine. V'chein Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rabba bar Avua Afilu yayin b'yayin, and also Rav Nachman says that Rabba bar Avua says that even wine and wine we are lenient. Amar Rav Nachman says, halacha l'maisa, the halacha actually practically is, yain nesech, yayin b'yayin asr, that if you have yayin nesech, it was actually poured as a libation to Avodah Zara and falls into other wine, then it is asr, we're strict. Chavis b'chavis mutter, if it's barrels mixed among the barrels, then we say mutter, we're lenient, and we say it's permitted like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. And stam yayin, let's say it's just wine of the Ovdei Kochavim, but we don't know that it was poured as libation to Avodah Zara, so then afilo yayin b'yayin mutter, even if wine spills into wine, we say mutter, we are lenient and say it is permitted. And Rashi explains, chavis b'chavis, if a barrel gets mixed up among the barrels, the shakel chad v'shadi benara, take one barrel, throw it into the river, v'inach nishtru b'hana, the rest will be permitted to get benefit from. Avol yayin shenesariv b'yayin, but if the wine actually mixes with wine, kulo aser b'hana, it all will be forbidden to get benefit. Halacha l'maisa lahoros ala maisa, the actual practical halacha, yayin nesech, if you have mamish, you actually have yayin nesech that was poured as libation to Avodah Zara, so then chavis b'chavis mutter b'hana, if the barrel gets mixed up with barrels, then we say it is permitted to get hana, chutz midmei osa chavis, except for the value of that barrel of yayin nesech. Avol yayin b'yayin kulo aser b'hana, but if the wine would spill into other wine, then it would all be aser b'hana. Stam yenin, but if you have wine just from the Ovdei Kochavim, but you don't really know that it was poured to Avodah Zara, afilu yayin b'yayin mutter b'hana. Even if wine spills into wine, it is mutter b'hana chutz midmei oso yayin, except for the value of that wine. The chein halacha, and that is the halacha. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Dalid Amud Beis.